Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Logical Nonsense Podcast. Today, we've got J. Cole. He fired back and then he later apologized. Is he Mr. Nice Guy? We'll find out. Breaking down his entire album, the album review, might delete later. He better not because I've listened to it 8 times. I've got my thoughts ready, locked, and loaded for y'all. Then hop into Zach Edey versus the Clingan matchup, as well as the Final Four as a whole. A, a great Alabama versus UConn game, and a atrocious Purdue versus NC State game, as well as some NBA final matchups. It's all locked and loaded. It's April. We love it. Let's get into it. Starting with this J. Cole album review. For those of you unaware, J. Cole released Might Delete Later. Obviously, one of the bigger releases, his last album was The Offseason, which I believe released in 2021. He's, of course, gone on this incredible feature run, but hasn't really released an album since The Offseason. Didn't really know what to expect. 2 weeks ago, previous to this album, he was basically dropped a bomb diss by Kendrick Lamar, which many did not expect, kind of shocked the world. Hit #1 on the billboards. It's been blowing up. It's getting crazy public attention. One of the biggest rappers in the game coming at another one of the biggest rappers in the game in J. Cole. And so a lot of people didn't really know how J. Cole would react. He drops an album. We expected him to probably come back. We didn't expect him to drop an entire album. So let's hop into it. Might delete later. Starting off with Pricey. What I like about Pricey, it's a great intro song in my opinion. It's definitely you hear this first song and it's a very vibe or kind of almost like a spacey kind of beat. Very slower pace, very feel good music to me. And I think he has some good elements that were added. I think the Ari vocals were nice. I think the Gucci Mane to offset the lighter tones of Ari's vocals were also nice. Gucci Mane and J. Cole, this isn't their first feature in the last 12 months together. So it was it was a solid song. I think I like the second verse from J. Cole better than his first. I think it was a better flow, a better cohesive verse as a whole. I enjoyed the second verse more. Definitely a good intro song. Going to our second song on the track list, we've got Crocodile Tears. This is the one that was snippeted, if you remember, off the Might Delete series. And, I remember hearing this and it was a much different feel. And honestly, this song to me, this single kind of represents a lot of that feel throughout the album that you'll see. It's kind of that classic, almost rap head style. It's kind of got like a mixtape feel to it. Just kind of somebody that's just rapping on a very simplistic beat with not a ton of, beat switch ups or whatever, nothing too crazy, but kind of this guy going off and spitting and doing his own thing, which I can appreciate as a rap head, not always going so, I don't know, complicated with your production choices. So I really enjoy the ferocious style on this. I think he's got some really tough bars. It's kind of more of a suspenseful beat, eerie beat. It creates this cool atmosphere. But again, it's simplistic. It's nothing too crazy production while. My biggest knock with this song, and I actually enjoy this song quite a bit, but I think as a whole, I think this song could use just a little bit more substance. Maybe bring in a better chorus or maybe bring in some sort of feature. Obviously, Cole doesn't need a feature on every song. I'm not saying that every song needs a feature, but I do think this song would benefit from a better chorus. Maybe it's from Cole, maybe it's from a collaborated artist. I would have liked to seen that. It's still a solid song. I think it's one of the better, more memorable songs or tracks on the album. Going to Ready 24, this is probably one of my favorites on the album. The more I listen to it, the more I like it. It's aged well for me too. I love the energy in this song. It's a much bigger switch up than the first two. You get more of this laid back tone in the first track, and then you get more of this ferocious tone. And this is just this high pace energy. this fun, like, makes you really get into the song, and I really enjoyed the chop sample in this. It's super dope the way it's chopped. Again, simplistic. It's got, those heavy kind of trap beats within it, and he sounds really good in it. At first, I really didn't mess with the Cameron feature, and as I've listened to it more, I actually really mess with his sound, especially on this production. I think it's really hard to sound bad on this beat. I think this beat was one of the best on the album. Again, really love the energy, really love the tone. And I think the bars that J. Cole brought onto the song also executed well. So then going into Hunting Wabbits, underrated song. I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about this song as a favorite of any sort. But I really enjoyed it. I think, of course, it's more of that classic undertone, kind of similar style to the Crocodile Tears. But I think the what makes it cool to me is actually the sample. And I know not everyone messes with that kind of talking or movie clip sample, but I really enjoy it in this song. I think it's brought in well. It's kind of like a not hardcore, but kind of more of a rap head song or a hip hop head song. It's just, bro is just spitting. He has this super dope, very confident flow to him, and you'll feel that confident flow throughout the album. And I think he has some really dope bars. This might be a boring song to other people because it's, not your typical radio mainstream formulated song, but I enjoy it. I think it's just fun to listen to him go into and kinda weave his way through the verses and, kinda bring back that sample multiple times as I talked about. So it's kind of that more classic rap song, and I enjoy it. I find it an interesting song. HYB, on the other hand, I did not find interesting. Boss and J. Cole have some great history of making great songs together. I was quite disappointed with Boss on both songs actually that he brought, but, I just feel like he can bring better verses, and he doesn't really have a verse in this. It's more so he kinda comes on for the chorus. I just wasn't really a huge fan of it. I think it's kind of this it was weirdly executed. It feels like, I understand he was probably going for a more laid back feel, which I'm totally fine with. I totally understand, but it came across low energy or just lacking substance again. And I know he's much more able of something better. He's just capable of something better. And I think, it was an attempt at more of that island feel that Boss is used to. I just don't think it works on this track list either. It kind of just goes in a different direction. And then you bring on the Central C feature, which I also wasn't a fan of. It's just kind of a weird song. I just don't think it really fits on this album at all. I think a lot of the songs I can kind of understand why he chose that. There's an atmospheric blend within the track list, and of course, you want diversity, you want versatility, but at the end of the day, you can connect songs within each other and still sound different. So, wasn't a fan of this one, and I also think it was kind of his attempt to make a radio hit song, and I think it failed again. It just was executed weirdly. So going to Fever, I've had mixed reviews on this one. I'm actually totally fine with this song. I think Fever is, melodic Cole. Have we heard better melodies from Cole? Of course we have. But I actually kind of like it. It's grown on me a lot too. It's one of those songs that I think, again, it's not hitting his ceiling of what he can do in the melody game, but it's definitely still, if you like that more melodic Cole, you're gonna get that here. And I think it's kind of a nice breakup to the rest of the track list. I talked about HYB kind of being way far off. I think this is still within the realm of this album without steering in a complete different direction. And I think this is a great breakup to the track list. Going to Sticks and Stones, kind of there's subtle jazz undertones in the beat, which is kind of cool. I think when he brings those types of elements in, it makes the beat more interesting, especially on such a simplistic production selections throughout the album. Um, I really enjoy the different fluctuations Cole brings. You'll hear many different flows on this songs. That's really cool. And I think he provides kind of a multi-layered effect within bringing his different tones and flows, and I think that's what makes this song interesting for me and keeps me engaged, and why I like this song and why I have it on my playlist. Yeah, it's just cool to see that, and I think he also has underrated storytelling on this. If you deep dive into the lyrics and the bars within this song, I think it's underrated as a storytelling song, and it's very kind of giving you this first person POV from J. Cole. Pie, another song that's aged well on me, weirdly. It reminds me of a classic early 2000s, late 90s hip hop song. You've got three rappers that are just kind of just going in their own realm, and it's super fun in my opinion. Again, I think the issue with this album, which I'll get to later, is a lot of people aren't necessarily about this style of hip hop with J. Cole. Kind of just that the just rap on a simple beat. That's not necessarily everyone's style. That's kind of the more hardcore rap style, and I think that's the issue and why it's not resonating with a lot of people. I enjoyed it. I think the simple looped beat is perfect for this song. Just let the rappers go off on this beat, and they all did their part. I think Cole still glides through his beat the best. Still glides through his verse the best. He tells his story. I mean, they all have their own story, which is super dope in this song. I really love a lot of the bars on this. The Cam Reddish bar, yeah, and then the beneath his spirit is still a pussy. That bar and the verses of the year. How many verses of the year is Cole gonna write? Like those are just some hard bars and memorable bars that I remember off this album. Um, and so confident by Cole. That's one thing I will give Cole credit on this is how confident he is in himself and his ability within the way he raps on this album. So I really enjoy that. Stealth mode, again, just not what I would expect from a Boss and J. Cole collaboration. This kind of felt like a throwaway for me off of Boss's album that has that island feel to it, and I think it just again could have been executed better than it was. Boss's verse is better than his feature on the first song, but it's still not where it should be. Then going to 3001, I think Bro is really, I mean, he's kind of pouring his soul into this verse. You can kind of hear the amount of passion and energy he's bringing into the verses on this one, which I really appreciate his effort and his flow and his lyricism. I think if you aren't listening closely though, I don't know if you necessarily are gonna hear that, but, like, you do listen closely, this man he's going hard, so I really appreciate that. I think it's a fun song to listen to. I think if there was a better chorus on this song would get more attention. Again, it's just missing that. I don't know, I one of my categories on my rating is immediate hits, and I think it's just missing that kind of hit factor without that catchiness or the hookness, and not, you know, I can still appreciate a song without catchiness or hooks, whatever. But I just think it would elevate the song a little bit, maybe. Then going to Trey the Truth in Ibiza. I know a lot of people like this song, and it's a very smooth trap beat. It's very relaxed. It's very zenful. It's very easy to listen to. It makes you almost feel like a late night car ride song. I really enjoy this song. It's very summery feel to it. I think more fans would have liked to hear something like this, just because he's bringing so many different elements that are cool to see from Cole. So I would have liked to see more of this on the album. Very great song. Going to 7 Minute Drill. Obviously, this is the response song to Like That and Kendrick's verse on that. We went after J. Cole, he went after Drake. J. Cole claps back. What do I think about J. Cole? A lot of people are saying Kendrick won. He probably did. Kendrick probably did win. I think it is harder sometimes I don't know. It's really hard to beat Kendrick in a rap battle. Obviously, Kendrick is one of the best rappers in the game. So if you're gonna go at one of the best rappers in the game, you really have to hit deep and hit hard. And I think J. Cole was a little hesitant. He played a little soft, but I also think he got his jabs in. the making a good verse every 30 months bar, the I'm in my prime now, come at me, the Grammys line of how a white guy has never or I think he says cracker has never given him shit. If you weren't dissing me, we wouldn't be discussing you. Those are hard bars. Like people are acting like those aren't hard bars and that he didn't bring anything. He brought shit. Like I don't know if you just didn't listen close enough. He brought shit. Like he definitely came back. Did he come back with as much heat as I think people expected? No. But I also just don't think that's who J. Cole is. Think of all the beef that J. Cole has gone into with another rapper. He really hasn't. I think it's just not really in style. Obviously, now everyone's talking about how he's soft because he apologized and all that. I have mixed feelings on it. I think J. Cole maybe did he take it a little too like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, maybe he shouldn't have taken it so personal, especially in hip hop. It's competitive. It's kind of, in ways, it's kind of like the sports world. Like, you don't need to take trash talk so competitive. It's kind of like that. But I also think Cole is just trying to say, like, bro, like, this guy's my brother. Like, people forget, like, J. Cole helped Kendrick get to Doctor Friends. And I think that's why Cole's kind of apologizing, like, bro, I don't want beef. It's just tough. Like, I know people that's not what people wanted. And I get it. Like, we haven't really had a ton of drama in hip hop. It's kind of boring without that, beef drama or whatever. Like, I remember how crazy it was when Pusha T and Drake were coming at each other, right? So I get that it's kind of disappointing to see Cole come back on what he had already said, but at the same time, like, he's still got his jabs in, and at the end of the day, it just sounds like he wants to be the more mature person and still be friends. So I can't like blame him for wanting to do that. So who do I think won? I think it goes to Kendrick. Kendrick, he kind of just said like I am the best. And where he lost a lot of people is with he went after the discography because a lot of people argue Kendrick has a flawless discography, which you could argue that. I know a lot of people aren't fans of Mr. Morale and Big Steppers, whatever, but I think there's an argument to be made that that was not the right move. Had he not gone after discography, though, I do think it's closer, and I think there's still some. It's also tough because he didn't just go after J. Cole; he also went after Drake, and I think it's kind of easy to go at Drake, low key. So good for Kendrick. Round one goes to Kendrick. I don't know if there will be a round two. Doesn't sound like J. Cole really wants to go back. So we shall see on that. Going to our ratings, lyrics, you know, not talked about enough in this. I think there are some underrated bars on this album. I think there's some underrated storytelling in this album. Do I think it's on the concept or lyrical level as a For Your Eyes Only or KOD? Absolutely not. Um, but I do think there's still some, cohesiveness in the lyricism. There's still some, I don't know, there's still like hints at concepts in this album. And so for that, I think it's still solid. I still think the lyricism is noteworthy and still better than what a lot of rappers are capable of. I'm going to give this an 8.1 out of 10 for on point production. It's simplistic overall. It's nothing too crazy, but it also wasn't so like it didn't disengage me from the songs. I think some people were expecting this. Nowadays you get all these crazy beat switch ups and chop samples and all this, and I think like Cole just wants to be classic rap. Like, don't bring anything too crazy, which I think hurt him in the long run, but I think simply focused on the relaxed beats that are classics, and still cool to sample, I think was the right thing to do for this album. I don't know if it was the right thing to do. I think was what Cole wanted, and you gotta respect Cole for that. I think overall it's still, like, well produced. There's no, like, "Wow, that's a bad produced song," you know? So I think it's average, 7.8 out of 10. Glorious flows. The one thing I gotta say about this is we didn't really see a flow that we haven't heard from Cole, which is kind of the downside of Cole being in the game for so long, but he also didn't hurt himself in this area, like, he obviously has a range of flows, and we still saw that. We still saw his melodic flows. We still saw his, spoken word, slower pace flows. We saw, his higher pace, fast pace, high energy flows too that we know he's capable of and great at executing. So I think he's still in the flow game more than anyone, and he will continue to show people what he's capable of. I mean, his flows are still better than most, so I'm gonna go 8.3 out of 10. Immediate hits. This is where the album struggled the most, and I've been hinting at it pretty much this entire review. There's nothing on this album that to me is going to really live as like, wow, that's a hit on this album. There's some tracks on the off season that I think were hits for the time. I think Amari has had a good legacy. I think something like Pride is the Devil. I don't know, Amari, Pride is the Devil, My Life, Let Go My Hand, even low key. There's some tracks on there that I think have lived on. 95 South. I don't know if that's gonna be the case here. We'll see. That you never know how album is going to live. It could age well. We've seen albums that we didn't think were gonna age well, but it's nothing that you'll see on 2014 or For Your Eyes Only or even his last album of the offseason in terms of hits. But, it's still not bad content. Like it's still I think going to get the attention because it's J. Cole. And for that, you gotta give it a decent rating. So I'm going 6.5 out of 10. Content matter. To me, this album, and I don't mean to diss the album in this way, but it does feel to me like it's nothing crazy conceptual. It's honestly, I think to me, it's like like a really, really well put together mixtape. The reason I say that is just because it feels like there was some tracks that could have been on here that I would have liked to seen on here, or some tracks that could have been off here that I would have liked to seen off here. I don't know. I just think there was some rearranging to do, some rethinking of certain tracks, maybe some reworking of different tracks that I would have liked to seen. Overall, it's still a great album. Um, I think it's kind of like an upper level mixtape for me. So for this, I have it at 7.6 out of 10 for an average score of 7.7 out of 10 on the album. Make sure to go listen to it. As always, make your own opinion. I've listened to this album probably 7 or 8, 9 times now, all the way through, and I've definitely made sure to formulate my own opinion on it. So everyone has a different opinion on this album. All right, going into March Madness. Final Four, it was interesting. The first game with Purdue and NC State was kind of atrocious. It was actually pretty bad basketball. It felt like no team could really make a shot, especially a three. The shooting was terrible. It was brick after brick. And after seeing that, I really didn't expect the team from that side to win the championship. It's just really hard to see that kind of performance and believe that a team is going to turn it around against either Alabama or UConn at that point. Edey, as much as I hate the guy, not hate the guy, as much as I hate on the guy, he still puts up numbers. Like he's just so hard to watch for me personally. I think what I struggle with watching him on is just I don't like that he just goes back to the same move over and over and over again. I also don't love during that NC State game, there was a lot of times you had guards come down and steal the ball from him, or post guys that would come down and steal the ball from him. And it felt like his awareness as a post, I think could be better. I think he had 5 turnovers in that game, which isn't great. Obviously, he's not just that player, but I do think if he wants to get to the next level, he will have to be able to become a little bit more versatile in his athleticism, and what he can provide for the team. There's more to be written on this guy, and a lot of work to be done if he wants to be successful at the next level. I think he could see struggle at first. Obviously, he's 7'4". So to say this guy is not gonna be good at the next level, it's really hard because he has such a physical advantage. But I do think athleticism-wise, he has possibly some work, and he might struggle with that a little bit. So there are definitely some downsides with him. Obviously, he put up 37 in the national title game, and there were stretches where he didn't look great, and there's some stretches where he looked really freaking unstoppable. So it's really up and down with him. He went 15 for 25, which is what, 60% still. So before I get to that championship game, let's talk about the Alabama versus UConn game. Much better game, much more high pace. Alabama honestly was the only team in my opinion to challenge UConn. Um, and I think that was probably the best game UConn had. I actually really like a lot of the guys on Alabama. Sears and Grant Nelson are two guys that I think have potential to do well at the next level, and I hope this will age well. I think Sears' ability to score was ridiculous in that game. He was kind of relentless in the fact that he just kept scoring from everywhere. And that's the thing, he can score from anywhere too. 3-point, he can drive, he can kick. He's just all around a very, very good player. And then on the other side, Grant Nelson, that poster on Donovan Clingan was just absolutely nasty. And his athleticism as a whole is just crazy. I can already hear it now. He needs to put on more meat, maybe. I don't know. I really fuck with his athleticism, though. I think he's capable of doing a lot of things, and I think he has potential to just get better. I don't know if he's going to enter the draft this year. I don't know if he's going to go next year, but I think he's a sleeper guy that could potentially do well at the next level, and provide teams with just versatility because I really like his game. So, and I know he was Caden's pick last week for guys who could translate well into the NBA, and I totally agree with that take. So I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So going to UConn, they're just full of guys. Obviously Newton, Cam Spencer, Stephon Castle, and then of course Donovan Clingan. It's really hard to lose when you have that many guys who can just kind of take on the game, and it's cool to see the different guys on the team take over the game at different points, and just because it felt like there wasn't one guy they relied on through the game. They really had so many options to go through, and not every team has that ability to do that. So it was cool to see them have that ability. They have quite a few seniors they're going to lose. Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, and they really shut down that Alabama team. I think what impressed me most about that team was just how composed they were throughout the entire tournament. They never really felt to me as if they were ever out of control of a game. Even, in that first half of the Illinois game, I know they struggled a little bit. They held it together and they got it done at the end of the day. And I think that's so important for the team's identity. Um, to go back to back is incredible. Uh, at the NCAA level, at any level, to go back to back is extremely hard. But I think what's different about college is you lose so many guys, and I don't know if they lost that many guys. I'm not sure, to be honest, but to just replenish like that and still have your team identity is something. And I think, now when you talk about teams and the all-time great teams, you have to put them at least in that conversation because of what they did, because they went back to back. So it's interesting. I think here you have to talk about, who would you rather have, Clingan or Edey? I think a lot of people right now would be on the Edey train just because of the hype behind him. I'd rather have Clingan. I think he's more athletic. I think he's more versatile. I like his game better. I think he's more suited for the team, and I think he's better help with many different areas with the team. So I would rather pick Clingan over Zach Edey personally, and that's not just because he won a championship. I just think he provides more for a team. Going to the women's sides of things, I think a lot of people wanted to see Caitlin Clark win. She didn't get it done, unfortunately. I think South Carolina was just a better team, obviously. Again, talk about great teams. South Carolina dominant all year long, going, I think, 39-0, which is just an incredible feat. It's so hard to go undefeated all year, have that pressure on you, and just not let any sort of adversity in any game affect you. So just to see South Carolina team and what Don Staley has done over there is just absolutely incredible. And so I think they're going to continue to just do great things. And maybe this is the next dynasty with we had UConn with the women's, and now maybe it's South Carolina. Another thing I want to talk about with college basketball, a lot of people are talking about Bronny James and how he declared for the draft. I think it's a little over dramatic. I think yes, he did declare for the draft. That doesn't mean that he's going to get drafted. That doesn't even mean he expects to get drafted. It's a strategic choice. He also entered the draft portal and or the transfer portal. And I think there's a reason for that. I think, he wants to understand what NBA scouts are looking at. And he's going to get that feedback. I think people forget that teams will give you that feedback on what you need to work on, how you need to improve to get to the next level. And that's exactly what he wants to do. There's a lot of pressure on him to get to the next level, obviously, being LeBron James, LeBron James kid. Um, I don't think he's anywhere near the NBA level yet. The reason being, I mean, he's a good defender, but he just is he athletic? Absolutely. Is he a good defender? Yes. The scoring ability needs to improve. He just really didn't show his relentless ability to score in the college level. Um, against really good competition. I don't even know if he started most games. So um, I think he needs to find his groove. He needs to prove that he can be a number one or maybe even a number two option at just the college level before an NBA team can consider drafting him. So some people might say it's a little overzealous. I think it's just to get feedback on where he can improve in his game from the NBA scouts, from the NBA team. I don't even know if he expects to get drafted. Transferring, on the other hand, you know, there's so many different factors that go into that. And, there's a lot of kids that play. Obviously, by him declaring for the NBA draft, he wants to get into the NBA. If he's not getting the touches or the looks or whatever uh, minutes that he needs, that he feels like he needs to get to the next level, m- he's going to make that change to make sure he gets it elsewhere. And I think his name he can transfer many different places and get those minutes and earn those minutes from another team and another program. Be interesting to see where he goes because he's most likely going to transfer. But again, quit making a big deal. Obviously, would we be talking about this if this was any other person with his stat line? I don't think so. I don't think anyone would bat a fucking eye. But because it's Bronny James, of course everyone's talking about it. LeBron James kid, I get it. But come on now. Can we quit talking about this? There's so many other things in sports right now that are happening that are so much more important than Bronny James entering the draft and transfer portal. NBA playoffs are set. Looking at the NBA playoffs, tonight we have a huge game as I'm recording this podcast between the Nuggets and the Timberwolves to determine the one seed. Um, Crazy how close the West is still. I think the Western Conference playoffs is going to be one to watch just with how close the battle has been in the regular season and just the amount of Minnesota, great team all year long. Denver, great team all year long, obviously defending champs. OKC, young talent across the board. It looks like they won tonight. Young talent across the board. They really, I think, could beat anybody. They have potential to be in the finals. Los Angeles Clippers, we've seen them on their high look super great. Dallas Mavs have been heating up lately with Luca. He's been playing out of his mind. Pelicans, they're the sixth seed. Any one of these teams, you can't count out the Lakers, can't count out the Warriors, can't count out the Suns. There's so many teams on the West that I think you just can't count out, and what's going to make this playoff just incredible. I'm gonna have the boys on to preview the playoffs and the matchups, but there could be some crazy matchups every single round. It's crazy that we might get Clippers versus Dallas first round. That's just nuts to me. So on the other side, East, I don't know what's going on. The fact that the Hawks and the Bulls are going to make the playoffs with losing records, kind of upsets me a little bit just because, we brought in this play-in tournament, and I know, again, I always give NBA props. Was the play-in tournament worth it? I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, you guys are only a 30 team league already. So and I get it was all about incentivizing teams to play till the end of the year, but it's also just tough because for me, it's one of those things where why are losing teams making it playoffs? I mean, we see it in football sometimes. Obviously, we saw it with the Seahawks, like I mentioned on last podcast, but it's just tough for me to think that a losing team should be in contention. And obviously, they actually have to win to make it in the playoffs. But I don't know. I'm back and forth on it. It's just, I feel like the regular season should matter to some degree on your record. And it just feels like these teams are just sneaking in. And I don't know. I don't know if I love it because I really don't believe in either the Atlanta Hawks or the Chicago Bulls. But I just think the East is just a weaker conference in general. But again, there's still some great teams over there. Obviously, the Boston Milwaukee drama. Milwaukee won a great one last night. And then you've got teams like New York, Cleveland, the Pacers, 76ers. So I'm curious to see how the East shapes up, but it'll be a great playoffs. We'll definitely break it down a little further on that. So this week, make sure to go watch the Masters. Of course, if you aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 500 by July and 1,000 by the end of the year. It's got some great episodes coming to you next. We have Alex Carnes coming on soon, a D1 pitcher, and then possibly a D1 football player coming soon. So we're excited to have some of the interviews, have some of the content. Definitely going to be previewing and covering the NBA playoffs very heavily. And we're excited, man. I appreciate everyone that supports this channel, and thank you.